How's everybody doing? Thumbs up, emoji, something? Great, thank you. There are some important people I want to introduce. Oh, there's Juanita, excellent. Most importantly, I want to make an introduction, and that is of Jordan Knox. Jordan is here, but I see that his camera and microphone are off, so maybe he'll make an appearance, or at least his voice will. So Jordan is, there you are.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Jordan. So you should have all gotten information, especially in the rollover communication from Jordan. And Jordan is our new data and technical assistant specialist. And we are super delighted to have him aboard. Jordan was an internal hire for that role. So he's already had a rollover in our locate childcare department in working in some administrative support functions and also doing some data support over there. So it was a really great fit. And now he is slowly but surely, so let's be kind and generous to him, but he's learning My Head Start. He's learning programmatic systems over in the FSC and EHL realm, and will be, after a period of some training and support, be transitioning to be sort of your go-to person, especially as it relates to any tickets that you submit for My Head Start. He will also be helping us, and his supervisor, Flogene Speck, who couldn't join us this morning, will be having a role in how we make any changes, you're already undergoing a ton of changes, but how we collect data as they relate to the new program services proposals, because we might be identifying different data points or different categories. So he and Flogene will be helping us make sure that we make our forms and our data collection more efficient and hopefully more supportive to you moving forward. But welcome, Jordan. Everybody is thrilled. I'm especially thrilled that you are on board. So, yay.
Thank you very much, Nellie.
Another word of apology, and I'll share my screen really fast, is we do like to get you an agenda in advance, and that was one of the requests that you made, and my fault, a little bit of miscommunication internally about how that would go out to you all, so we did not send one in advance, and I'm sorry about that. But I can share with you what we intend to do. Can everybody see that? All right.
Yes, we can.
Thank you, Jessica. Are there any other, I think we all know each other pretty well, though Jordan, maybe we could take a moment and have everybody briefly introduce themselves to Jordan so that he understands which center you are affiliated with. And then we will move on to the icebreaker. So why don't I request on my screen, and I'll give people the prompts. Janice, can you say hello?
Get my microphone on here. I'm in Cumberland, the probably furthest away center in Western Maryland. And we're excited to have you, Jordan, because I have a new program assistant. She was trained by the previous one, but we're excited at the thought of getting her some more training and using the system. And as Nellie just said, creative ways to introduce new ways to collect data to show everything that we do.
Thanks, Janice. Joyce, you're next.
Okay, good morning. Good morning, Jordan, and welcome. My name is Joyce Tierney, and I'm director at the Carroll County Family Center. We're located in Westminster, Maryland, which just this week got treated to some nice severe weather with whatever came through and knocked out a lot of power. But thankfully, our roof remained intact on our building because my center is on the very top floor, directly under that roof. We have no ceilings. We just look at the underneath of the roof. So we're really pleased that Mother Nature didn't pay us a more severe visit this week.
Oh, that is a relief. I remember seeing the roof, so now I have a visual associated with that. Well, I'm glad you're safe and things are not wet. Thanks, Joyce. Jenny.
Good morning. My name is Jenny Crossley. I'm the director at the Family Center of Queen Anne's County, one of the family support centers on the Eastern Shore. welcome. We're happy to have you and looking forward to working with you.
All right, Michelle, you're next on my screen.
Good morning. My name is Michelle Macer. I'm the Family Center Director here at United Way Family Center Excel Academy. Welcome to MFN Family.
Thanks, Michelle. Karen Nisley.
Good morning and welcome, Jordan. I am Karen Nisley and I'm from the Annapolis Family Support Center located downtown in our beautiful state capital. And if I look a little hot today, I just got 45 people off on a bus to the National Zoo and 18 car seats installed. So they're going on a field trip and I'm sitting here in air conditioning with you all lovelies. So welcome and good morning again.
Oh my gosh, so fun, but I can't imagine the car seat installation and the flurry related to that.
It's an ordeal.
It is. Oh my gosh, doing one is hard enough. Thank you. Juanita.
Hi, I'm Juanita. I direct the center in Baltimore County. Welcome, Jordan. So I think we'll be working closely together quickly because I don't have a data person, so I need help with the rollover.
Excellent. Okay, well, I'm glad you've been able to connect then. Dory, you may not know Jordan, so maybe you could introduce yourself, even though you look like you're in witness protection right now.
Well, yeah, so we're on vacation. Hi, I'm Tori Yorks. I'm currently doing some independent consulting work for MFM, but I was previously a director at Washington County Family Center. And so I have 13 people in the house with me, 6 children, and then the rest are adults. And so, yeah, I'm trying to be quiet in this little room because, yeah, Wi-Fi wasn't so great. So I'm going to turn my camera back off just so I can make sure I stay connected.
Okay. All right.
But welcome, Jordan.
Thanks, Dory. All right. Barbara May.
Hi, good morning. Barbara May. I am the Director of Family Partnership in Frederick. I apologize, I don't have my camera on as this is my first day back after being out with COVID since Friday. So, but thank you and welcome. We are very happy to have you as part of the team, Jordan.
Thanks, Barb, and I hope you're feeling okay. Glad to see you.
Thanks.
Natalie, you popped in along with a friend. Can you introduce yourself to Jordan? You may not have been on earlier. So we introduced Jordan Knox. He is our new data and technical assistant specialist, and everybody's saying hi to him.
Okay, hi everyone. This is Nina. Being naughty because I'm working from home today. But I'm Natalie Coward, and I am the Family Support Center Director for the Adelphi Langley Park Family Support Center, and that's in Adelphi/Hyattsville/Langley Park, Maryland. And I'm really happy to be here and see everyone.
Shari.
Hello, my name is Shari Wadi. I'm the program manager for the Family Discovery Center, and I am located in Montgomery County.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thanks, Shari. Demia.
Good morning. I am the program director for the Family Support Center in Southern Maryland. I'm one of the newer centers. I service the Tri-County, so Charles, St. Mary's, and Calvert. It's nice to meet you, and I look forward to working with you as we are still learning how to put data in, and we get some things confused. So we are working through this as best as we can. So assistance would help us, a lot. We're very needy down here.
That's okay. We want to meet your need. Thank you. I think I've identified all of the directors. My screen sort of played a trick on me and moved things around, but I think that's the case. But I do see that Flojine Speck joined us, and she is Jordan's supervisor and an important person for everybody to know. Hi, Flojine.
Hi, it's nice to meet everybody.
There she is.
I am Director of Resource Referral and Data Management, and Jordan and I are both at the point of trying to learn everything. So we will be hopefully visiting some of you, and I am available if you have anything you need to bring to me. I'll put my email in the chat.
Thank you, Flojine. So I'm very excited because I think that Flojine and Jordan sort of in combination are really not only going to help us in what we used to call the program team, so early Head Start and family support data management, but also because Flojine has a real wealth of experience in database management. She has I won't be able to describe everything amazing that she's done in her career, but she just knows a ton about data collection and especially database management. So she'll be able to help us in assessing how My Head Start is working for us. I know we've mentioned previously, is it the best tool for us in family support? Obviously, we'll keep using it for the time being, but as we evolve in our data collection and the things that we want to capture, Flojine will really be a leader in helping us figure some of that out. So I think it'll be a great team. Remember that even though Flojine has sent you her personal email, which is lovely, make sure that any request for assistance comes to the My Head Start email address that you all have. We don't want anything to fall through the cracks or not go through that front door, because now both Jordan and Flojine have sort of oversight and access to that. And they want to be the first point of contact for any ticketing requests that come in. And as they need assistance from maybe, say, Nathalia, who's been a big help, or folks from the EHS department, they will take responsibility for gathering that assistance internally with MFN. So they're now your point of contact. Use the My Head Start email address, and hopefully all of your needs will be met. Any other questions about data collection and management? We good? All right. Thank you so much. All right. The icebreaker for today is I would love to hear from everybody. You can just tap a word in the chat, just one word, or if you want to use two, that's fine, to describe your work to develop a new program services proposal. I know you've had great substantive conversations with Dory, or that's my one word, substantive, but what do each of you describe your experience? And if you want to use more than one word, that's okay. Juanita says evolution. Oh, Dory says fun. Excellent. Thrill ride from Joyce. Demia says exciting. Barb says slow. Okay. Innovative from Natalie. From Shari. Opportunity. Exciting, challenged. Okay, are we waiting on anybody else? Anybody want to expand upon that? On what they said?
I can expand a little bit.
Okay.
I said thrill ride because you're excited to get on it, and it's, everybody's talking about it, and it seems like it's so much fun, but it's also stomach churning, and you feel exhausted when you get off the ride each day and your brain hurts.
Anybody else have a reflection?
I've got just a little bit for mine, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So I feel like just being in this type of field for work for a few decades, things have changed and can keep changing, but faster and faster. So I think programs get antiquated more quickly, as especially with technology that comes in and offers another direction to families. So we need to evolve and not become part of the antiquated programming where what used to be decades long became a decade long, became 5 years long. So I feel like the opportunity to just tweak the programming now is part of an ongoing evolution that is more fast-paced.
That's a good point. Thank you. Anybody else want to comment?
I can. I think for us, I said it is exciting. And I think because we are struggling with having families that want to come into the center or be involved with our in-home services, we struggle. We have some families, they're not really consistent, but to be able to make changes and focus on different things and be in the community is something that we been doing to try to promote ourselves, and being able to, write that into the service proposal and now take 4-year-olds is like just really exciting for us, and hopefully it will help us have more people in the center.
Great, thank you, Damia. Any other reflections?
I can go ahead and go. This is Barb. I meant slow. I mean, it's certainly exciting. It's an amazing opportunity for change. I don't know if I'm just making it more complicated than it needs to be. But with us being a big center and so many people involved as far as management, staff, wanting to include participant voice. And then, just waiting for answers that we've asked questions about. And then, of course, me being out, I feel rushed to have a product, but yet I want to take our time and really make sure we're doing it correctly. And so I don't feel like we're advancing or we are where we need to be at this point in time. Is kind of what I meant.
That's okay. You can and should feel however you feel. So that's okay. Well, maybe I'll speak very briefly, and Dory really is the person who will be hopefully facilitating some of the next part of the conversation. But to speak a little bit to the timing, because I know some of the program consultants have mentioned to me that, oh, people are a little bit nervous or anxious about when actually everything needs to launch, and sort of how to navigate this transition period. And I will acknowledge that in the midst of any change, things can feel very messy or chaotic, or that you're sort of swimming around in shades of gray, where you might want things to be a little bit more black and white. So I'm acknowledging that, yes, change is hard, and it may feel unsettled, but we wanted to provide this venue so that you could ask any questions that might have arisen over, the past couple of weeks, through your conversations with Dory, for Dory to sort of recap some of the experiences she's had with each of you. I know that you've had the opportunity to come together as sort of a cohort to discuss ideas and hopefully learn from one another or get ideas from one another. But as far as timelines are concerned, and sort of when you should be starting something, hopefully a good guide is if there is something that is in your, what I'm calling your current program services proposal. So whatever you were operating on last fiscal year, because we've just started a new fiscal year, you should continue to do that. But there's a big caveat. If there's something that you are removing from your program services proposal, you do not need to do it just for the sake of doing it. Or if there's something that you want to implement anew, or that you are counting anew that you have always been doing, but maybe weren't getting sort of credit for, continue doing that. So hopefully, we have time to do this and get it right. We have time to come together and answer lots of questions. You are not expected to have a firm plan effective today. We will be working with each program to make sure that what you really want, and I appreciate your comment, Barb, about engaging other stakeholders. There are probably other people that you will be including in these conversations, including families that you support. So absolutely, we want to make sure that we are allowing time to put together the most thoughtful approach. And then that said, probably it'll be a work in progress, right? Next year, we might be talking about some different tweaks or massaging things a little bit. So I think my team tends to be annoyed with me because I live in those shades of gray and do a lot of saying like, I don't know, let's talk it out, where people want more clear instruction or direction. But that's why we're coming together today. So let's take the opportunity to answer your questions or brainstorm ideas. But I want to hand things over to Dory to talk a little bit about her experience and sort of the framework that has been developed related to the program services proposal development.
Sure thing. So this is I feel like I'm echoing, so I'm sorry if I am, but this is our opportunity to get questions answered. So meeting with all of you, everybody I feel like has a similar yet very different path of how they're going to get to where they need to be for their program service proposal. I think many of you are planning to add or tweak some things, add 4-year-olds, change how you do service delivery, those kinds of things. But the big thing I feel like I would like to talk about a little bit is this whole concept of changing the actual format of the PSP and doing the core service clusters. And so I just kind of want to get a little feedback from all of you. I've sent everything to all of you. If you hopefully have gotten it either last week or the week before. But I really want to have a little conversation about that because I'd like to see if that's the way we can go and that's going to move us forward. But I know that there were questions around, well, what is this going to look like? Do we have to do everything in the cluster? Do we only have to do one thing in the cluster? So I won't, but these are questions that I feel like we need to kind of just answer and get addressed and see what we want to do as the next step. Is that helpful or no?
I was talking and everything was quiet. Okay, I was muted. I was saying it definitely is helpful. And I think, first off, I appreciate your thoroughness in the conversations that we've had. It's definitely been a safe space, and I've appreciated the fact that we were able to have the directors chats, if you will. I only attended one, was able to get to one of them, but it was really helpful. I think for me, one of the questions I remember coming up was, like, how are we going to define caregiver? How are we going to define, so I got excited because we proposed for our center to get rid of the IHI role completely because it's overkill because we have healthy families and they have a staff of like 16 health in-home interventionists, but they call theirs family support specialists, and they do exactly that, is the home visiting model. And we tend to, in the past, get a lot of our participants referred to them or from them. And so it just didn't make sense to have one person on our team be their own individual silo. And so that was very appealing to me, and we are super excited about that. The other piece for us was extending the age, because it was an abrupt shift once the child turned, they're 4 years old, and it was like, bye, see you, you can't come anymore. And what I found was that we were still letting them come, we just couldn't count them. And so I just want to know, because I've told my team these ideas, they're like, oh yeah, this is amazing. Even just the minimum monthly count, changing that from 32 for our center, we said 25 would be more realistic. Counting those community families, the ones that we refer, the ones that we give just diapers to, having that kind of hybrid list. So I just want to know, my big questions are, when does it officially start? Because I understand what you're saying, Nellie, is to continue, use the PSP from the past, but our PSP from the past is old. It still counts for the IHI, it still counts for all of those. So it's a little confusing. Also, yeah, so when would we start? When can we officially start implementing these things? And then as far as the clusters, to your question, Dory, what does that actually look like for us? Like, now, is there a deadline? I think for us, it would be helpful to get some type of a timeline, because I think we can have these conversations, and I felt that they were very well attended, and everyone participated, but at the bottom line, it's like, okay, so when does it actually count towards our numbers, and when does it actually go into effect? So I think that would be helpful as I'm, preparing for, well, I'll say that part later, but yes, so. That was a lot, but
Yeah.
I hope that answered.
And I
something.
want to tease out some things that are maybe just my appreciation of the feedback that you gave and confirmation that it sounds like you're on the right track, and that hopefully the changes that you're implementing are exciting to you and sort of feel more supportive to you in meeting the needs of your community. So overall, like it was exciting to hear like the swift sorts of things that made clear sense to you. So
Oh,
I'm
absolutely.
happy to hear that because I haven't, Dory's been spearheading it and I get to hear through her, but it's fun to hear it
Oh,
directly from you. Secondly, I mean, my inclination or MFN's intention through this process is that implement things as immediately as would be most supportive to you. So it's sort of hopefully a mixed bag, right? Like if you're saying we want to change the number of attendees that are required, for example, I am comfortable with that change being effective July 1. And that we are sort of creating the program services proposal that will reflect fiscal year 23. And so you can include that in your program services proposal, like effective July 1, this is what we're going to be expecting and counting. If there are staffing changes that you have, again, it might be slightly individualized for each center. So when you talked about your IHI, like, is that a person that you need to repurpose or, things like that? Is there any value in counting anything that's being done currently as far as the bridge is concerned? So that's where I don't necessarily want to dictate what things should look like. But as far as changes that you're making that will make your life easier, if you want those to be effective July 1, that's absolutely fine, and include that in your program services proposal. So I'm not suggesting that you say, well, we have to do 32 for the month of July, but then we're switching it, effective September to something else. So did that answer that question for folks?
It answered it for me. I would also, just because paper, having like a paper trail, if there could be a way to have that in writing somehow, because I think too, just for whether it's new staff coming in, but also so we're all on the same page and there's no confusion, that makes sense to me as far as implementing them as soon as they make sense. I think my concern is for on MFN side, and maybe I'm, confused with that, but would that create any kind of friction or I guess confusion in like collecting data? So for example, if my center goes and says, hey, we're effective immediately, because we haven't had an IHI person anyway since I've been there. So it's not like we're letting someone go.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have no IHI.
I was worried, like, who's the person?
Oh, no.
Okay.
We have no IHI. No one's wanted, the job, even though we've tried various ways, tried to raise the salary, that kind of thing. And so.
And isn't that justification to not have somebody, right?
Oh, absolutely. And we've been fine, without them, honestly.
Right.
So for us, like that's already been effective, honestly, we've been trying, but that helps to redirect the recruiting efforts. But would that create any kind of, I guess, issues with any of our reports? Would that, or like even just with the, the grant requirements, that kind of thing. So I'm just curious because I do want to, because my sponsoring agency is aware of this, but I know that it would be helpful to have just like these concrete answers, because I would hate for them to say, would they reduce our funding because reduced our numbers, that kind of thing.
Right. Okay, thank you. That's a helpful request for clarification. The documentation that we will use to confirm that you are meeting expectations will be multiple things. One is your contract. And you will remember maybe that last year we shifted some of the documents associated with the contract and have a core contract, and the contract document itself does not include the sort of deliverables in the way that it used to. That's a separate like scope of service or attachment. And that's where we're able now to individualize it for you, Natalie, versus what Joyce chooses. So the template contract will remain the same for pretty much everybody. Your funding amount is not going to be reduced at all. It will be the same amount as previously. The $330,000, we talked about this last time, where that $5,000 quirk from last year had to be removed out because the intention is to add an additional award this year of potentially up to $100,000 per center. And we recognize that this adds a lot of administrative complexities depending on if you're a state government, if you're a small nonprofit, whatever it might be. So again, we want to be really flexible with each of you and your sponsoring agencies to do what makes the best fit for you. But I can assure you that the scope of service that we develop will reflect the program services proposal, and will probably just speak directly to what you are beholden to is what is included in your program services proposal. And your monitoring reports are sort of the ultimate like confirmation of whether or not you are meeting expectations or not. So that's sort of the circular loop that says, okay, you've checked all of the boxes. And that will serve as the documentation, because since we're now moving towards a more individualized approach, we probably won't send out a memo or something that says, okay, here are the new expectations, because they're going to be different for everybody. So instead, it will be sort of encoded in your contract and in your PSP, and we will have to. I know that the question has arisen, oh my gosh, what's going to happen with the program monitoring if it's all different? Yep, it's next year, your program monitoring hopefully will be very aligned to your program services proposal. And it might look a little bit different for each one. And that's where, again, probably not until the fall, when things settle down a little bit, we will be convening additional stakeholder feedback gathering, focus groups, whatever we want to call it, to identify how we're going to track that. And that's where Flowgene and Jordan will be helpful in helping us create potentially new documentation or recording of that. Did that all make sense?
So if I could I just want to add, so in the PSP process, like here's where we are. So we sent out the information about, we would like to have a draft by the end of July. And then it came up, well, there's so many questions that we need answers to. And I feel like we've kind of gotten almost all of those answers. I know the one that we really need to talk about is the caregiver one that you brought up, Natalie, because I know that's everybody's kind of waiting for that one. But the process that we're in will continue. And if we need to push it back a week or so, I think that would be fine. But I really want people, here's what I would like to do today. I would like to agree that we're going to use the PSP cluster area. And I have it pretty much like typed out, defined definitions of each of the category areas. So like under the first one, which is, let's just say it's the self-sufficiency or no, what's it called? Community connections. So under that, all of the examples of what that could, all of the service areas under community connections, and then examples of what those are under those individuals. So there will be a lot of detail coming to you around that, but that doesn't mean that's all there is. If you are going to do a program and you're like, oh, I think this is going to fit better here than there, then that's what you do. But I would like to agree today that we're going to use that model. We're going to move towards that, and then we can start actually physically writing our changes and get some drafts down so that it doesn't feel like this process is taking forever, because I sympathize with you because I feel the same way. Like, okay, I'm ready for the next step, but I just want to make sure that you have an opportunity now to ask all the questions that have come up and that you've gotten all the answers. I do think if we wanted to spend a minute on the caregiver, if that's all right, Nellie, then that's going to kind of help us move towards any other questions. But I feel like all of the questions you've asked have been written down, sent. There have been responses given. I've shared that all with you. So if there's something glaring that I'm missing, or maybe I need to resend it again, I'm certainly willing to do that too.
To speak to, can everybody hear me? My sound got a little weird. To speak to the caregiver piece, and maybe I don't want to put Juanita on the spot, but I know that Baltimore County DSS was maybe looking into some sort of permission / release to allow someone who is not the biological parent of the child to be an attendee at a center, and getting the biological parents like permission through some formal mechanism or form. Has there been any progress from your end, Juanita, at Baltimore County DSS related to that?
When that request was initiated by a parent that came in, I was on vacation. So that process was taking place with Amy and the social service coordinator. But since then, the family kind of dropped off. They're not.
Okay.
But
So less urgency on your end.
Right.
Right.
But the
Okay.
form was being developed. So,
okay.
so that's still in the air for the network.
So I can tell you what I've been doing on my end. So Dory is sort of the conduit of information. So I have a couple of different forms that I've sort of cribbed from peers and other agencies that I worked historically. I did a little bit of outreach to say like, okay, what do people have already that is, it's not exactly a release of information because we've got someone who then will be a program participant, right? And so it's really just the biological parent or the guardian, the legal guardian, giving permission for someone to attend the center with a child and serve as their caregiver. So how we define caregiver, I understand, is the question. But the fundamental permission is that we absolutely are in support of the family being able to identify who it is that they want to attend the center with their child. So I think in Juanita's situation, it was a family where multiple members of an extended family maybe shared a household and shared responsibility for childcare and, just child rearing overall. So maybe you've got an aunt and uncle who live in the home who have a lot of responsibility for caring for a child, and that sort of extended family constellation is absolutely lovely in meeting the needs of that family. So whoever the adult is that wants to attend the Family Support Center and get the benefit from those services should be able to attend. And it's really just a matter of having a document that allows that person to do that from a legal perspective and from a liability perspective. So we need to draft something like that. I was hoping that maybe a center already had something like that. But from our perspective, we'd like the family to be able to identify who fulfills that caregiver role. And if they want that person to attend, we have no objection to that. We just need to get sort of the legal ducks in a row. Does that answer the question? We don't have a form as yet. I have a couple of different options, but we need to then formalize it and make it more specific. And then you each could decide, you probably will need to talk to your legal departments or figure out if there are tweaks that you need to make that are center specific based on your sponsoring agency or the advice from your attorneys. But that's where we are with that. Any questions about that?
So I have a question. Are you saying for this 2-generation program for the caregiver, that the caregiver is the adult who will be benefiting in the programming, learning like how to be more self-sufficient? Or are you saying that the caregiver/caregivers are the adults that come in and the child's participating in the program, and then one or more people can come in while the child is in programming?
Let me flip that question for you. What do you think would be of greatest support to the family?
Based on the model that I've learned in my short time here, my understanding was that it was a parent and child that being whoever the caregiver is, because the point was for the parent to learn how to be self-sufficient in order to help raise that child after the child moves out of the program. So if you have multiple caregivers in here, basically more like babysitters, then that's not my understanding of how the program is best served for the family.
So we're talking about, I think, a couple of different course services. And Dory, feel free to chime in based on the conversations you've had with multiple centers. But if each family is not necessarily identifying like an occasional caregiver, but rather, this family constellation, let's say they live in a multi-generational household where multiple adults have a role and who would really benefit from understanding what is healthy attachment, what does brain development look like in an infant, how do we create a home environment that sort of meets the best needs of that infant or toddler or very young child, and that person becomes the sort of family point of contact with the family support center, and that they're sharing the information with the household, because that's the way families work, right? Like you might have a conversation, say, here's what I did at the center today, and let me share that with this other person in the household who has a role with the child as well. So I don't think that the thought was, oh, we're going to dilute the connections that are made, or necessarily spread it over 5 or 6 household members. It was more that if the primary caregiver, or what we might previously have said, oh, it's the biological parent, right? Or the legal guardian, and recognizing that families are all different. There are different people who care for a child. So what does the family think would be the most useful degree of support? And that might look different for each family, and they might avail themselves of a different array of services for that particular family. So again, that's not as directive as you might want, but I'd really like the centers to identify, here's how we're going to apply this possibility. I can't imagine that we're really going to have, suddenly there's a shift and 50% of your attendees are going to be non-biological parents, right? That's probably not going to be what ends up happening. Instead, it will be, this particular family has a unique need. Let's figure out how to get the right adults present.
Well, in the past, it has been the situation, because people would come in and say, look, I'm working, but I want English classes, or I want my GED class. So you don't have 3 people trying to get GED, you have 1, but
right.
But so that whoever that one person is needs to finish that adult portion of that goal. But we'd also have those people that come in and say, I'm babysitting these 2 kids, can I bring, and then we switch off. But if you're having 2 caregivers switch off on days, neither one of them is getting all of what they say they need. If there's not a consistent, it starts incrementally blossoming into other stuff. So.
And I guess, again, I'd like for each center to be able to say, let's work with this family to develop the family's need plan. I know that there's actually, what do you create with the family? The goal plan. Yeah. So, I mean, could it be done that it's individualized for each family? And then it may be, I mean, what I don't want to do is make any sort of prescriptive dictate of like, well, if this particular member of the family could benefit from some sort of adult education, we can't do that with them because over here we're working with this particular family member on something else. Like, what I want you all to do is say, here's what we think we need to do with families. And I don't want to be attached to the previous expectations or perceived expectations. I want you to work with Dory to say, here's how we think this will work. Here's the best approach based on the information we have. And you'll probably learn things over experimenting in the next year with these different family constellations or these different circumstances, and that's okay. That's how we determine what family support and its evolution looks like. Dory, do you have anything to add? Because I don't want to be moving to a gray space instead of being concrete.
I think this whole conversation about caregiver is gray space no matter what.
Yes.
I think each center is really going to have to kind of think about what they've done, like what situations have come up in the past and how, if you had the opportunity, you would have been able to do something differently. I do think sponsoring agencies are going to have to, for each center, weigh in, right, on like if that's something that they're, I think it's a tricky situation, but I think the definition of caregiver is the person, I think Barbara said it best in the chat. She said, the more adults that are in the child's life that we can provide support to, the better off for the child. And so I think if we look at it from that perspective, when we're thinking about offering services, like I know many of you want to do grandparent groups, grandparents are raising their grandchildren, like those kinds of things. And so I think it's really, overall, all of the centers would have an opportunity to do this, but then individually, each center is going to have their own plan for it. And we can work on that. But I see Joyce has a question. You're still muted. Joyce, you took your hand down, but you're muted. Sorry.
it sounds like from our recent conversation just now, the constant is the child. In other words, the child comes to the center, and what we're concerned with is the child can come with mom, with dad, with grandma, with aunt so-and-so who lives with them. So it's the child that's always constant, as opposed to situations where a woman in the community or a man wants to come in for GED, but he's babysitting his neighbor's kids today. Or she has the kids that she always watches on Thursday mornings for, her ex-boyfriend or whatever the situation is. In that case, there's not really a relationship, parent and child or caregiver child, other than babysitting. But I think if we're looking at the child that we know as a client, as a participant, and therefore who does the family consider a bona fide attached caregiver, I think that helps me a little bit more. I don't know, I just gained a little more clarity with the discussion that I heard. I'm not sure if that's what everybody is thinking, but that's just what I observed.
And I think that you summed that up perfect, Joyce.
Perfect.
Like,
Yeah.
that's exactly it.
I don't think we could have said it better. I think that the child is the common thread when you're talking about anybody in a caregiver role. And then you figure out what will, and that's part of the family. I mean, again, if we're introducing our terminology, then there might be multiple family members who have different touch points. And again, that's for you and your center to determine what you will allow that family constellation to avail themselves of. But the child is the common thread.
Is everybody good with that conversation? Was there any more questions about that? Because I do want to get to the one big one I completely forgot about until I saw Juanita's thing in the chat. Any other ones about the eligible? And again, as we're working through your PSP, we can talk about that and come up with a plan and, help you with your plan for your center. But I do want to get to the question about what does MFN, so this is where I think some people, and Nellie and I have talked about this, are stuck on their PSP, because we're not going to write a PSP unless we know what are the outcomes that you, MFN, want from us, the centers. And this has been a question that all of you have asked. And I think we've asked and answered a couple times in a couple of different ways, but I do want us to take just a minute to kind of really talk about, like, what is it that MFN is going to require from the centers in terms of reporting information. So, Miss Nellie, I'll give it to you.
Okay, and I probably will ask some clarifying questions. I mean, I see a couple of things in the chat that seems to be interconnected somewhat. So Barb makes note of, like, what are the non-negotiables? I know that's a big question. I know Juanita makes reference to, like, what does MFN need to give MSDE? And all of that what's implied in all of that is that MSDE may have this sort of category of expectations that maybe are a little bit unclear to folks. So I want to do a little, I don't know if it's myth busting or just explaining my understanding and this opportunity related to that. So I want to make sure I understand from Juanita, like, about the data collection requirements. But the good news is, and I get the sense that this might be sort of surprising, that MSDE issues an RFP, for lack of a better word, a bidding process. And typically it's a non-competitive bidding process because we've been the grantee. And if we're in good standing, then we're just given the opportunity to apply, right? But every year we have to do some sort of application. And it says, here's how we are going to use this grant money to oversee the network of family support centers. And MFN tells MSDE what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. And then MSDE says, okay, that'll work. You get the funding, or maybe they ask for some tweaks or something like that. But it's really driven by, in the same way that you might apply for a grant. If you apply for a grant and you say, here's what we're going to do, then you get the money, and that's what you do. So we get to describe what we intend to do. And that's part of the reason for this particular process, is that we want all of you to tell us how you're going to do it. And then that's what we're going to say we're going to do. Does that make sense? So they don't dictate to us. They're not too prescriptive about what it is that we're required to do. We have had a meeting with MSDE where we've said, this is this project that we're undergoing. We are opening the doors for the centers to be much more individualized in their intentions. And we've described this sort of cluster concept. So we're still requiring that people do these sorts of core services, but they're no longer going to be outlined in the way that they were previously. Instead, there's going to be a different sort of cluster so that you have the ability to say, you know what, we learned that this particular, like that an IHI didn't make sense in our community because we have community partners. And as we broker that connection and communicate and work collaboratively to support this family, that's going to best meet the needs of the family. And MSDE said, okay, that makes sense. So this is this opportunity. You tell us what you want to do. We paint the picture for MSDE. We create new data collection forms, and that's what we use for our monitoring, and that's what we provide to MSDE. So I know that right now it feels very complex because there's lots of moving parts, and we're creating something new, and we're sort of driving, we're on the train as we're developing it. But it's a really, I think, exciting opportunity. And the bottom line is, for the most part, we get to tell MSDE what we intend to do. And that's why we're inviting you to tell us what you want to do. I don't know if that answered the question, but I'm happy to answer like more detailed questions about expectations.
Is everybody good with that? Okay, all right, okay, because I'm sure we'll be answering that question again.
Juanita, because we're like finding new territory.
So I have
For that, and I also saw that last night they had this telescope on Nova, but they were building it and driving it and
Gotcha.
in
the same time.
the old room.
Right. Yeah. My sister works for the telescope. She's an accountant. And so I have a connection to that. I get excited. All right.
So,
what else do people have?
I have something. Can you guys hear me?
Sorry. Go ahead. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I'm pretty sure that there are certain things that you, MFN, report to MSDE on annually that you would like to continue to report on, like immunizations. I think what we're looking for is for you to tell us what are those things so that we can keep that in mind when we're creating our programming, when we're thinking about reporting, when we're thinking about data collection. That I think that is what we want, like those concrete things that you absolutely will be reporting on and you would like for us to collect the data surrounding. I think that's what we're missing.
And Shari, I would like to say, like, as we move into developing your PSP within those clusters, those things that we historically have collected data on will continue to be there in those clusters. So like ASQs, immunizations, numbers of families who complete parenting, maybe numbers of families who, reach a self-sufficiency goal of whatever that is. I think as we create that PSP within those clusters, there are going to be themes across all of the centers where MFN is going to be able to say, okay, this is what we're going to collect in this community cluster. This is what we're going to collect in infant toddler. Like ASQs, immunizations, like that's a given, right? I mean, why wouldn't you? But I think that, so I understand what you want, Shari, absolutely, because I want it too. I don't know that we're there just at this moment to be able to do that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I think that the conversations that you're having with Dory, again, what we were hoping to do was just sort of take some dynamite to whatever preconceived notions we had about expectations. That didn't mean we were throwing everything out of the window. Like immunizations, yes. I can tell you that right now. Definitely. ASQs, yes. But we wanted all of those conversations, those rich conversations, to help drive what you each individually included on your PSP. But it's not like you're going to get, I get the sense, because I asked Dory, I said, what do you think it is that people really, want to walk away from? What are they worried about? What about this is inspiring the most anxiety? And I said, is it because people think that we're going to like pull the rug out from under them or change things in midstream or say, oops, we forgot, we're now requiring you to do something really big that we didn't mention before, but we won't tell you till mid-year? And she said, yeah, I think they might be worried about that.
Ellie,
Right.
that is exactly what it is. That is
Right.
exactly what it is.
Right.
Yeah.
We don't want to
So-
be caught off guard. We don't want to be
Yeah.
surprised. We want to start off on the positive
Yes.
foot of knowing exactly what we need to do. And it's so exciting. All of this is such an incredible opportunity, but we've been doing these things for 20, 10, plus years. And we know that immunizations and ASQs are going to be there. We just want to hear it.
Okay.
We just want to
Yes.
be able to, we don't want to be caught off guard or surprised. So you're exactly 100% on point when you said that. Yes.
Right. And I guess all I can say, and what I said to Dory is, I know, and some of this was based on the feedback we got about your previous interactions with Maryland Family Network and how we operate and how maybe we come to you too late with requests for information. Maybe we have rigid expectations, but then are inconsistent in our application of them. Like all of that, we really, really took to heart. But then the challenge, or sort of the irony, is if we're opening things up for this sort of feedback, you're going to have that lingering doubt and anxiety that maybe this isn't really real. Maybe we're going to add something midstream that's going to shock and, annoy you or add to your burden. And all we can try to do in this process is through our behavior and through our feedback, like prove to you that this is our commitment and our interest is allowing you this flexibility. And that's really, I know, unsettling. And Shari saying, yeah, all of this historical precedence. I know, and I get it. Yeah, and you don't want to have to do things over again. And that's why, and I appreciate, Barb's comment about like things are a little messy right now. They're kind of slow. We have to do a lot of back and forth. But the reason why we need to invest the time right now is so that we won't have any moments a couple months down the road where we go, oh crap, we didn't think about that. Now we got to do something about it. And that's where we do need you to be the authors of this. And then again, that gets back to, but we've never really been given that autonomy before. Yikes, what do we do with it? So other than identifying it in this space, I don't know what else would be reassuring to you, but I'm just here to say, like, I am witnessing this. I am present with you in this, and our commitment is figuring out how to do this, and so that you won't have any surprises. Joyce is raising her hand.
And I remembered my mic this time. One of the things I know that we talked about in our small group gatherings was also how can we start getting credit for things that we do that hasn't always been counted. For example, when we do a big special event one evening and lots of families come and they're not necessarily families that we have a file on, that we have an LSP and a partnership agreement on. And we were just curious because we know programs that are also part of MSDE, i.e. the Judy Center, they might have a gingerbread night in the month of December. And, they're reporting, wow, 200 families came and participated. We were curious, how does MSDE receive those kinds of numbers from a network like the Judy Centers? And then how can we write that in too to get credit for all of us do things that you don't know about necessarily? Like I field calls all the time from community members wanting to know about services that maybe I can't provide, but I hook them up with the right people. Or we might do an activity outreach event, but we're not counting those people. So we are very curious to know, how can we bolster our numbers by accounting for other things that we do that historically we never counted? And that might only come from discussions that you guys might have to have with MSDE to find out, what do these other people do to report that to you?
Actually, I think, Joyce, I don't know if any conversation is needed with MSDE about that, because I'm not going to say MSDE doesn't care. That's not the right framing of it. But we get to author that. So I don't think I need to ask MSDE, do we have permission to let the family support centers report on these things that they haven't been reporting on previously? I think we say, isn't this amazing? Now the family support centers are including things like outreach events, or, you know, whatever you want to call those things. And the amazing thing about that is that now we can target like the number, or we can identify the number of families who maybe aren't fully enrolled. And that's where I think Dory used the terminology like hybrid, or, you know, multi-prong, or, you know, we want you to be able to count that. So what Dory's doing is creating these clusters, so that we know where community resource events fit in our clusters. We know where, if you get a call from someone and you spend 45 minutes on the phone with them, just walking them through other resources in the community and giving them that information, that you're getting credit for like a resource and referral contact. And that's where you all get to say where that fits in these clusters. And that's where Dory's going to explore with you, you know, where does this fit? And that's what we need to have as a shared framework, because then you're going to have those numbers to roll up. Like, I especially like the sort of resource and referral contact. I'm using that word. Dory might have called it something else, right? But I'm sure that you spend tons of time doing that, that all of your staff have a role in that, that you're talking to someone and you give them something super specific and tangible that is helpful to them, but it didn't have to do with their child being in the infant space and, you know, it being a formal parenting ed. But we know that that's family support. Every little touch point is family support. So let's tell us how we paint that picture. This is why this opportunity is great. And Shari's saying, yeah, absolutely, Shari, that's what you wanted to do. We want you to include that, because what we're going to be able to then do to MSDE is say, look at what Shari in Montgomery County did. They reached 1,000 families this past year that we weren't previously identifying or capturing in our data. Isn't that spectacular? And then down the road, we might be able to say, and we've become more sophisticated in our data gathering. We know that from those 1,000 families that you reached in community outreach or whatever it might be, 30 of them ended up becoming people who got more intensive supports. And they were people that they wouldn't have captured without that outreach event or something like that.
And I just would want to add to that. So in our conversations that we've had, you know, I've shared that for this first year, as we're moving into this new PSP, that each center would kind of collect that additional data on their own in some whatever format works for you. There had been some conversation, I think, about a couple of directors getting together and trying to figure out like what that might look like or how it could work for everybody, just because we don't want to lose that data. So if someone comes up with a really great way to be able to capture all of those extra things or everything that you're doing, then we can start to share that, you know, as directors, so that everybody's capturing. But for the first year, until we start working on the data stuff and until we start moving forward, just, you know, people will have the responsibility of doing that. But I think that doing it yourself is really then going to help you even better inform your PSP, because as you're collecting that additional data that doesn't fit into My Head Start, you're going to start to see your own trends around what is it that you're spending, you know, a lot of your staff time on, and what are those things that you're doing in the community that you haven't captured before. So, and we can, you know, again, have some conversation as we move forward about how to do that. But
well, can I ask a real quick clarifying question?
Sure.
Because I want to make sure that we've got future plans that we're thinking about, and then we've got what our current requests or expectations are. So I think we know that a lot of the work that you do, especially sort of the more social service, case management, resource referral, all of that sort of work may not be captured in My Head Start. And we know that. But I do want, especially if you know what it is, and sort of community events are a great example. right? Like include the number of community events you intend to put on and their intentions in your program services proposal underneath the cluster. Identify the number that you're going to do. Let's say you plan 5 a year. If you achieve the 5, then, you know, fireworks go off. You've achieved that goal. You get to establish that. So I don't know, Dory, if you were saying, oh, count this over here, it won't be part of your program services proposal, or just more count this over here because you can't input it into My Head Start. Okay.
Right.
We
right.
definitely want you to include all of those intentions and quantify it wherever possible on your PSP. And we are recognizing that My Head Start has its limitations, and that's where we'll be having sort of the conversation about what does the future of data collection look like. Does that make sense? Okay.
Okay.
What else we got?
I was going to say, what was the other big question that kept coming up? And I can't remember it because, you know, I got vacation brain. So there was another big question. So we talked about the caregiver. We talked about the, you know, being able to do your own, what you want to do in your community, and count what you know, what we haven't historically been able to do. Was there another big one that we had?
The
I don't
only
know.
thing I have on my notes, just looking at it, I just put, but I think you guys answered this already. Find out what MSD says is appropriate for counting. But I think we answered that.
Right.
This is what you were, I don't know if this is what you're looking for, Dory, but I remember from the other meeting, we talked about what makes the family support centers the same or united as a network to the Judy Center. What's identifiable about us if we're all different?
So this is my thought, and I hope that, you know, everybody else. So when Nellie and I were talking about the cluster stuff, you know, one of the thoughts that came up was maybe being able to tie all of the work that we're doing in family support with the protective factors, because that's tied to, you know, our CB money, as well as, you know, it's best practice, right? Like the 5 protective factors. And so how we're all the same is that we're all working towards families reaching those goals and having those protective families, or those protective factors in their families or within their family unit, right? And so as we're writing our PSPs, we can connect all of those things that we're doing to any of those protective factors, and it's just going to kind of bring it all together as a nice bridge, if that makes sense.
It's kind of the glue. And the clusters themselves are where the similarities lie. So you might all, Dory, give me a name of one of the clusters, community connections. Yes, you all create community connections. That's part of family support. How those connections get brokered, it might be a little bit individualized based on your specific community. But family support means community connections. Family support means, you know, adult ed and self-sufficiency. Family support means infant and toddler programming. And all of that are the common threads. And the glue is the protective factors, and and being a primary intervention strategy for child abuse prevention. Like all of those are the common threads. And then you have the individualization for each of your centers, because you know each community is unique. Yes.
All right, I'm looking at the question. Okay. Oh, a new tool instead of the LSP. I don't know that we have one of those yet, right?
No, we have an assessment that we use, a tool that's used in EHS, but one of our goals is to, again, engage you all in that process. And so you're not required to use the LSP this year. You can continue to use it if you want to. We don't want people to have to stop doing something that they enjoy or that they find value in or that has meaning for their particular needs. But that's something that we had gotten enough feedback about, like people weren't finding it to be useful. And we will have to bring folks together to determine the tool that is going to be used. So to answer your question, you're not going to be surprised in mid-year with like, what the heck, where are the LSPs? You're supposed to be doing them. We've tabled that as an expectation.
Okay, and so Barb asked about the template for the cluster PSP, and so yes, my intention was to have it out. I thought I would do more work on my vacation, but I'm not working as much as I thought I would. And so Tuesday, I will have it to you by Tuesday of next week. So at least the beginning, you know, the draft of the PSP template. So that you can start looking at it and how the clusters are broken down and the definitions and those kinds of things. And then we can start scheduling some time to chat again or to do some individual if that would be helpful for people, and move from there. So
Dory, we didn't expect you to work on your vacation, so give yourself a little bit of grace, please.
No,
Honestly, I do think that template will be a huge starting point for just speaking for myself, just having something to look at in black and white and just be able to start somewhere. I think that's been the hardest part for us is just, how do I even start?
Right. And I do, you know, it is like I've worked on it. It's almost where we need it to be. I just want to make sure I refine it a little bit, add a little bit more description. We met with Andrew, right? Andrew? Yeah, from National Family Support. Just want to make sure, you know, he and I had some conversation, got some feedback. So when we send it out, after we get feedback from everybody that we need to get feedback from, we just want to make sure that it's not going to be, if we have to make changes, they're not going to be big changes. It would be like, oh yeah, this can go there or move that there. So we want to send you the most accurate thing that we can so that nobody's redoing or wasting time. But
okay. I want to make sure that we have time for the other items on the agenda, but I also, if there's someone has a burning question or an area of concern that we haven't touched on, I also want to give a couple minutes for that. So Karen's asking to review the clusters. Sure, Dory, do you want to take a couple minutes?
Yeah, so no, because I don't have my notes. But sure. So we have, there's 5 clusters. Let me see. I think, I got them. Here they are. Let me pull them up. And again, these are going to we'll shift them around a little bit, but they are community connections. And so that would be like information and referral, community workshops, classes, basic needs, field trips. And again, this is all written and given to you. Will be parent caregiver capacity building. So that would be adult ed, ESL, your TPEP program, Karen, employment, health ed, formal parenting. And again, it's a menu. So you don't have to do everything within the cluster. You pick the things. We will asterisk for you the non-negotiables, as Barb asked about. And I think we've already talked about those individually anyway, but those non-negotiables were like the infant toddler, service coordination, formal parent ed, and there's always the one I forget. Coordinated family supports. So that's like your case management, your family advocacy, mental health, linked services between you and other partners. And then we have the early childhood education cluster, which is the infant toddler program, parent-child activities, mental health programs, and play groups. This has been tweaked since that, but those are the clusters. And then as we send out the PSP template, if there's something specific you're thinking of doing and it's not in there, then we're just going to add it. And it, you know, so this is not in any way, shape, or form set in stone. We're gonna move it or change it as we need to make sure that everybody is able to get their information in there. So.
Thank you.
Okay.
One notation for everybody, because I know this time of year can be challenging in that we're sort of operating without a contract, and we're operating without one because we're waiting for MSDE to give us our notice of grant award for fiscal year 23, which is what allows us to create a contract for you. So I'm just, again, acknowledging that we're waiting on that from MSDE, but also to MSDE's credit, they have been very patient with us as we reconciled and reclassified a lot of different expenses from fiscal year 21, as we identify where we are in fiscal year 22. So we will, as always, get you contracts as soon as we possibly can. But that's gives us that little bit of grace period so that the contract will hopefully be fully aligned with your PSP, and that we're identifying your sort of scope of service and the goals that you've included when those all get developed. Any questions about that or budgets or anything like that? We'll also know a little bit later in the summer, I hope, knock wood, what sort of unspent dollars we will be able to dedicate to each of your programs. And that's, again, will take more conversation and negotiation with MSDE. And that's why we asked you to submit just your budgets for your core, the $330,000, with the awareness that the additional funds may come into play. And we'll let you know that as soon as possible. And then we'll work with each of you individually related to when we do know about those additional dollars, whether or not we are doing a budget modification that adds the dollars in, whether you need a different award, because your sponsoring agencies may have requirements. So we don't want to dictate to you how to do it, because like for state governments or whatever, some of them don't allow funding to come mid-year. So we're just going to have to talk to you about what will be most helpful and supportive. And if all of you could be thinking about that, or letting your sponsoring agencies know, look, this may come down the road. What's the best way to either amend the contract and the budget or have something separate? Like, start thinking about that. Okay. All right. I want to give the training department an opportunity to do some updates, and also our program team to give you updates about things that are happening in our world. And at the end, we will have, as always, some words of encouragement from Nathalia. So I'm going to kick things to Alan.
Thanks, Nellie. I'll be brief. I just wanted to let you all know that we are on track for ITERS training next week, and we are also on track for the fall conference being on November 4th. I was asked to give you all a survey. There was a request made from Rashida that we would push back the directors conference in December 1 week, from December 1st and 2nd to December 8th and 9th. We were just wondering how much of a disruption that would cause to do so. If you wait one moment, I'll be placing the link for the survey in the chat box. But besides those items, that was what we had for y'all.
Thanks. So please fill out the survey. Wait, yeah, questions for Alan?
Sure.
Alan, real quick, for the ITERS, because I know I emailed you, thanks for sending that. So for that training, I know you recommended the directors go as well, or anyone who it would be involved in ITERS, right?
Yep.
I wanted to know, would the training be recorded?
I don't know that, but I can get back to you on Monday, first thing Monday.
Okay. And the reason I ask is because yeah, it would be really helpful for, just like new staff to be able to see it. And I don't know, unless y'all are planning to do it again, like later on in the year, or this would be the only time it's offered.
Again, I'm not sure, but I will be able to reach out and get back to you first thing in the day, and I'll send it to the directors to give everyone the information.
Okay, thanks, Alan.
Sure.
Thanks, Alan. Alan, you had a question in the chat
Yes,
from Barb. Yeah.
I saw that. Barb, I'm sorry, there may have been a mix-up. I did see that, but the email came in, but I didn't get to it until after the class was well into it. I apologize for the mix-up. There's been a little bit of a hiccup with these 3 classes in particular. The ITERS link will be sent out tomorrow. Yeah, and yeah.
Okay.
It'll be going out to all the participants.
Okay, so for anything, Alan, for the hiccups that you've been mentioning, will can the training department maybe do a little deeper dive into sort of what, if anything, went wrong, and there are attendees that signed up and give a little feedback to the staff about how we're gonna keep that from happening in the future? That'd be
Absolutely.
great.
Sure.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nellie.
All right. How about program consultants? I know that Jakira may have some comments about Lena. I want Stephanie and Nathalia to be able to chime in with anything programmatically that's going on to give you updates. Jakira, do you want to start with Lena?
Yes, thank you, Nellie. Hello, everyone. Just give you an update on Lena Grow. I sent out an email, I believe it was last week, just to let you all know that Lena Grow has did a reformat of their program to a 5-week sequence. They're looking to start a sequence in the summer if any of you are interested. They have some new coaching training. If you're not interested in the summer session, think about the fall session, and also maybe consider taking getting your staff to sign up for the summer, because you can start the coaching whenever it's offered. If you're interested, please shoot me an email if you want to sign up to get some coaching training, or if you're already a coach, you have to redo some, I think they call it regrow. So it's like coaching training, but just kind of refresher course on, because they changed the whole program. So think about doing that if you're going to consider it in the fall of signing up or what have you. If you're interested, please shoot me an email and let me know, because we have new regrow material coming our way. So that's about it. Thank you.
Thanks, Jakira. Stephanie or Nathalia, do you have any programmatic updates or things to note?
Yes, I do. Good morning,
Thanks.
ladies, because I have to run. But I just want to share the updates as it relates to the partnership with Maryland Family Network and the University of Maryland School of Nursing students. Annapolis Family Support Center has participated in this partnership this past year, and they will continue to do so this coming September. Currently, they were served by 4 nurses from Shady Grove. A new site to be added, and Barb is very excited, is the Frederick County Family Partnership, and they should be up and running in September. And their services will also be provided by the nurses at Shady Grove. Annapolis Family Support Center and Frederick County will participate in a community garden project. $75,000, well, $7,500. Don't say 75,000. $7,500 will be split up between 8 to 10 centers, early Head Start and family support centers. And this funding or donation project is from a former University of Maryland student. The programs will use these funds to purchase planters, seedlings, soil, gardening tools, bags, netting, etc., to develop a garden at their site. Cumberland will be served by the nursing students from
Oh, she froze.
Yes. Excel and United X. I froze. Am I still here? Hello?
You're
Am I
back.
still froze?
You're back. You're good,
Okay.
Stephanie. But we missed a couple of
All right.
sentences, I think.
Okay. Did you hear me speak of Cumberland and what the plans are for them? Or do I have to restate it?
You went out on Cumberland, so you can restart from there.
Okay. Cumberland will be served by the nursing students from Frostburg University, and their partnership is still in the developmental stages. Excel and Center for Family Success were 2 programs were suggested that participated in this program, and the director from the University of Maryland School of Nursing will contact the directors to have a conversation to see if they're interested in participating. Montgomery County Family Discovery, I will be attending a meeting next week to begin the planning steps for them. Some of you may know what this partnership is about, and some of you may not, but the students provide health, education services, screenings for children, heights, weights, vision, and also just training for parents. So that's my update for School of Nursing. And if you have not signed up or shown an interest, it is an excellent program to participate in, because your program can benefit from the extra services that they provide.
So I thank you for your attention.
Thank
Gotta
you.
go.
Okay, bye, Stephanie.
Bye.
Natalie, yes, if you can squeeze it into a minute or so, go for it. You have an
Sure will
announcement
be.
and great.
Yeah, it will be less than that.
Okay.
Quick question. I promised I know Nathalia's been trying to help us as well, but I promised my service coordinator I would ask the other directors just in case y'all had any. Does anyone have any nurturing materials that are